All right, here we go, everybody. Let's go. Yep. All right, it's Wednesday. I had a nice spot over there in the sun, but somebody beat me to it. That's okay. We're going to make do. We're going to make do with what we have. We have our guests coming up. Yep. Let me check the volume. All right. JR says connection confirmed. There we go. Good afternoon, one and all. We have a lot of news on this Wednesday. Let me just double check. I think that sounds okay. There it is. Yep. There's Pat McClough. There's Pat. And Richard. Yep. There's Michelle. Hi, Symbiote. There they are. There's Farrah Paul. Thank you, Tracy Montero. Yep. Folks, look at the schedule. Yesterday, all day here at the retrial. All right, we'll bring that down. Yesterday, all day here at the retrial. And then last night, first on scene in Warwick with the Michele Romano case. As they were then searching that house, I believe they're still here. All right, there's my notification. We're live on YouTube. There I am. Yep. And then there's Cheryl. Hola. Remember, you can watch on YouTube. And I'll show you what I'd like about YouTube. I'm going to do a demonstration. Is you can what I like about YouTube is you can then move it down and then use your phone and keep the feed. I don't know why FB doesn't have that, but I don't think FB has that. Let me just check our X connection. Again, we are, yep. All right, we're live. There we go. What a day, what a day. Yep. How about this morning with the incredible, remarkable Julie Grant on Court TV? She was fantastic. We're going to talk to Stephanie Murphy coming up in just a moment, folks. 103. Here we are. Jury selection continues. They got two more this morning. I'll tell you, it does not stop, though. For those that were watching, so was up here all day yesterday and then met with a source on the way home. And then my plan was go home, have dinner, try to relax a little bit. And then instead, we ended up in Warwick because they raided the house connected to the Michele Romano case. So there was that. So, okay. And Stephanie Murphy, attorney Stephanie Murphy, is going to join us coming up at 1:10. Folks, on, boy, it was freezing. It was freezing this morning. It was cold last night in Warwick. That case, it, like many of you, it haunts me. It's just so awful, and I feel terrible for Michelle's family, Michele Romano. It's just so unfair. And we're going to walk through a little bit of the fact, oh, go ahead. The fact, we got to get Julie Grant on the Real News. The fact that they're calling it a suspicious death. So we'll talk more about that. And then we're going to be live coming up. Oh, good. It's just a couple moments. Good afternoon, Trooper. Folks, they are doing a fantastic job with the buffer zone. So far, not one person has filmed me, followed me in my car, screaming F-bombs. Not one. We'll take the wins where we can get them. Remember, if they don't have weapons, I mean, that's the game changer. Unless someone's got a sharp object or a lawnmower, I'm pretty chill. All right, we're going to begin in just a moment, and then we'll be bringing on Attorney Stephanie Murphy, which I think it should be fine. Oh, good. I think we have her in queue. We're going to bring her up in just a moment, as soon as I get the go-ahead. So, folks, it's a fast pace. I do anticipate we're going to be doing Road Patrol live tonight. See the latest on that. And we are live right now at 1:06. It is Wednesday, April 2nd. This is the real news. It is. Now, what you see behind me, sort of, there it is. There is the courthouse, Norfolk County in Dedham. There it is, the Karen Reed trial. So it is day 2 of jury selection that we are sitting through. Now, again, this is the retrial that they are going through, and I believe they're actually making progress. And they're making progress. I believe we have 2 more jurors today. So that's 2 yesterday, and then 2 more today. And then who knows? Maybe they grab one this afternoon. They are really doing a good job flowing through. It's not easy because it's been such a high-profile case. What I have found, there's a lot of people that have heard about it. The big difference is whether or not they've made a decision about it, whether or not they've come to a conclusion about it, whether or not they feel strongly about it. But so far, they seem to be doing a good job moving it through. And if this pace stays like this, they should be able to have a jury. Today's Wednesday, so sometime next week, and then boom, they can start opening arguments and then run away. It is, it is a lot when they say to someone, I don't mind if it's the troopers talking behind me. This buffer zone has worked out great. There's not as many, but just because it is cold and it's early, a number of protesters that come out. Primarily right now, they're Karen Reed supporters. They have them a little farther down. I know they're wildly upset about it, but there's a big murder trial going on in the courtroom next to where jury selection is on the Karen Reed trial. It's the doctor who allegedly in 2020, the German guy killed his wife and then threw her in the pond. And I mean, he's being represented by Kevin Reddington, who is, 2 brilliant. Well, anyhow, Kevin Reddington is a very seasoned criminal defense attorney. It's a fascinating case, but that's going on. Plus, you have jury selection, and then there's other things that are happening. So I know, just initially, some of the people are upset that they're a little bit farther down, but as someone that sat in court last spring, no one can tell me. You could hear them chanting outside, and they were everywhere. Every time we would try to do, be live from here, there were people all around you. And right now we're on the radio, right? We're on AM 1380, 99.9 FM. Now we're also live on YouTube and X and Facebook, and then a lot of people watch it afterwards. On those platforms, a little more free with the language, but radio still is FCC, and some of the supporters, would use sometimes foul language. But the latest on that is that seemingly things certainly seem to be moving along really, really well. And I want to, before we bring on Stephanie Murphy, as someone that has watched this, the whole dynamic has changed with Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan. The guy is just a total pro. The judge is very dialed in. The process to me is working the way it should be. Listen, I know there's people out there that want to just scream, free Karen Reed, and let's just watch when the trial happens. If people watch the trial and go into it with an open mind, it's actually live content. It's unscripted. And I find it really, really fascinating. And someone who is also um, obviously very engaged in law, is in fact Stephanie Murphy. And we talked to Stephanie. But I want to, before we do, I want to once again, though, just mention, folks, I know there's people out there that that just grab on to cliches, right? You know, the whole system's corrupt. Everybody's corrupt. You watch the interaction that we have nightly with police. Nightly with police. Last night, state police there, Cranston with the missing woman. Um, I mean, I don't relate to this narrative of police corruption. As someone, I deal with them literally every night, not like once in a while. Those of you that watch Road Patrol Live every night, many of you know I ride with them. I wouldn't be riding with them. So I don't relate to these people. All cops, you know, are corrupt and the whole thing. Folks, remember, Marin, Barrett, and Murphy, criminal defense attorneys, over 50 years combined Rhode Island criminal defense experience. Your fight becomes their fight. Call them 401-228-8271, and you can find them on both Facebook and Instagram. And let's bring her on right now. From there is attorney, and it's our friend. Here we go. Oh, hold on. And there. Oh, hold on. All right, there we go. All right. Good afternoon, Stephanie.
Hi,
Stephanie,
John. How are you?
Hi there. I want to start with, if you don't mind, this case that, because I think the wording is interesting, and if you could shed some light. This was Michele Romano. Now, I got involved with this case last fall with a missing woman, last seen in Oakland Beach, and then suddenly she disappeared. Her family reached out to me, did a series of videos trying to raise awareness, and then they found human remains in Foster. Now, last night, they were executing a search warrant where I had filmed the daughter where Michele had been living. So there's two aspects of this, if you could touch on. One is, what does it tell us that they're describing this as a suspicious death with the human remains identified as Michele Romano found in Foster?
Well, I think it just means that the police are investigating, everything about the case, the cause of death, where she's located, everything that they know about the case from prior investigations, and then everything with the remains they found that could lead them down any path that is possible in terms of investigating it. So they're saying suspicious in nature. So that what that means is, it's going to lead to a huge investigation on top of the investigation that was already done about her going missing.
Is it also possible, Stephanie, that they didn't say that they're investigating, for instance, with the missing woman in Cranston, the Cranston police immediately came out and designated that a criminal investigation. The fact that they're saying a suspicious death, is it possible that this was not a homicide, that perhaps, and again, I'm just speculating here, but is it possible that if someone were to overdose, and then someone makes the decision to move and, for whatever reason, dispose of the body, is it possible that it was not a homicide?
Absolutely. So it's definitely possible, especially in this case where maybe there's not a criminal action in regards to the death, but it could definitely be a criminal investigation in regards to where the body was found, how it got there, all these different things. But there's definitely laws in Rhode Island that talk about, the moving of a deceased body and the disposal of a deceased body. There's a lot of regulations in Rhode Island that kind of give people guidelines of the law of what can and can't be done. Absolutely, John.
And Stephanie, just finally, if there's someone listening or watching, drug use is very common, and there are many times someone could think they're innocently using some illicit drugs and unknowingly spiked with fentanyl. Suddenly someone ODs. I mean, you tell me. To me, it's always a case of call 911, but someone could complicate things by deciding we'll just, bury the body and pretend they left. It sounds like there's never an excuse or a way out if you then, it may not have been a crime, but then by doing that, you're committing a crime.
Right. I mean, first of all, by calling 911, you could get the person help. Maybe the person doesn't realize that they could get help, and maybe there's some medical things that could get done to save someone's life. So definitely call 911. There's also protections in the law in terms of somebody overdosing, of you calling the police and getting help and you not getting in trouble for any part that you had in. I think public safety and the law is much more important that you call and get someone's help. And like you were saying, John, it leads you down a road of if you try to cover up a death or something like that, then you're in so much more trouble than just a possibility of using drugs. So it opens yourself up to so many more charges that are so serious, and just makes everything a lot worse on top of not trying to save someone's life.
Stephanie, and again, folks, speaking with attorney Stephanie Murphy. Stephanie, this headline has a lot of people upset, but to me, it's how the law is written and how he was defended. State dismisses DUI charge against Representative Enrique Sanchez. Now, we had talked about, you and I discussed, when he was stopped, he refused the breathalyzer, even though, he seemingly in the body cam was, kind of slurring his words. He went to give a debit card instead of his license. But what does this tell you that the DUI charge has been dismissed?
So it happens a lot actually in Rhode Island in terms of people who get charged with a DUI charge and also a refusal charge. A lot of times an attorney or a defendant is able to take a plea to one or the other and they don't go forward on the other charge. So a lot of our clients come with us with a refusal or a DUI charge, and due to their own individual circumstances, somebody would rather have a refusal charge with a longer loss of license on their record than a criminal charge. So it does happen a lot. Rhode Island's unlike other states. We do go to court for the refusal charge and we also go to court for the DUI. So it is common that one or the other gets resolved and the other gets dismissed. So it's not uncommon in Rhode Island.
But looking at this, it sounds like people should not take away from this that he somehow got special treatment as a public official.
No, I think it can happen with anyone really charged with these cases. The prosecutor and the judge and the defense attorney will take a look at the facts, see what the facts show. If there's an accident or really high readings, or someone is not very cooperative and disrespectful to the police, then the case might go in one direction. But somebody who might be intoxicated and refuse a chemical test might be allowed to plead to the refusal charge and not have a criminal conviction. But on the refusal charge, they get a much longer loss of license, and they have other community service, DUI school, and also a second offense refusal does get treated as a criminal charge if they ever were to get rearrested.
Folks, again, it's attorney Stephanie Murphy. Now, Stephanie, many times when we're out, there's police chases. People run from police. And then many times, I think there was actually even one this morning in Cumberland where they call off the chase. Police officers that I've ridden with tell me that when they first joined the force, they were told you chase until you run out of gas, meaning they would never. But then you have, there's crashes and things that happen. A Rhode Island man arrested after police chase in Connecticut. For those out there, and it's pretty frequent, what are the penalties for someone that runs from police where then eventually they are caught?
So the penalties are pretty severe. So there's an eluding charge in Rhode Island. The first offense is a misdemeanor, so it includes up to a year in jail. The second conviction on an eluding charge is a felony, and it carries a minimum of 2 years at the ACI. But even in terms of a first offense, so typically with an eluding charge, there's a reason why the cops are going after you, whether it's reckless driving, whether it's, they have knowledge that a felony was committed. So on top of an eluding charge, you also have to deal with the reason why the cops are going after you anyways. But I definitely agree with you, John. Like 10 years ago, police were, going all steam ahead in terms of trying to catch someone. And lately, there's just been so many awful accidents and tragic accidents that just create a huge public safety hazard. So I do see what you just talked about of police calling off chases in order to keep the public safe.
We had an incident. It was Memorial Day. There was a robbery on Federal Hill. Police started to chase them. They called off the chase. And then the person that was robbed at gunpoint, he was declining to even press charges. So whatever happened, not that they caught the individuals, but police said to me, now see, look what would have happened had we chased them and then they crashed. And then you have the victim who wouldn't even cooperate with police and cooperate with them and even press charges. Well, then police are really holding the bag.
Right. And police also have a lot of more tools too now with video cameras and
Yes.
identification. So, they might not need to get somebody right in the moment. They could get them, a couple hours later when it's safe to do so. So I think they're just trying to really keep the public safe and, balance going after somebody right away. I mean, if someone's kidnapping somebody or someone has a gun and it's a public safety hazard that they're out in the road, then that, they might do a little bit more in terms of a chase.
Now, this next story, for some people, may not make sense, but when I saw it, I thought this is an opportunity to kind of clarify things. Because we run into this, or I run into this all the time. This story, man arrested accused of climbing scaffolding at the Superman building in Providence. Many times when we're out with police, there's homeless people and they see a fire escape and they climb up on top of the building. Or near the colleges, the kids climb up on these fire escapes. And there's this myth. And I've been with police when the person caught and they bring them down, they say, well, it's outside the building, so that's public property. Stephanie, could you touch on that? Just because a scaffolding or a fire escape, although it's outside the building, that's still private property.
Absolutely. So anything attached to a building that's owned in somebody's yard, that's all private property or even, public space. But a lot of it in terms of fire escapes, lawns, outside, front kind of porchways and stuff like that, that's all private property. And you don't have a right to go on that without permission. And not only could he get charged, as this person did on the Superman building, with disorderly conduct and trespassing, but God forbid he try to open a window or something like that. And then all of a sudden you're looking at an attempted B&E or B&E charge. And those charges are really, really, really serious. So you have to be really, really careful in regards to property, even if you think it's public property. If you're stepping on something that's attached to someone's house or property, then you really have to be careful, that you don't get charged with trespassing, disorderly conduct, or attempted B&E.
Now, Stephanie, before we get to Murphy's Law, which is the story you found, I do have a quick question because people are asking me. Now, we're sitting in on the Karen Reed jury selection right now, and we're going to talk about another case that there's jury selection. But the question I get asked is, now they're trying to screen out prospective jurors, whether or not if they have strong feelings about the case. And sometimes, seemingly, in the last trial, it seemed like maybe some of the jurors were less than forthcoming that they did have strong feelings. But is there any, could someone get in trouble? Is there any criminal liability if someone misleads their feelings or knowledgeable about a case? Or is it more just they're dismissed and that's just how the system works?
It's really more that they're dismissed and stuff like that. But the prosecutors and the defense attorneys have to go with their feelings about if people are being truthful. It's almost a credibility determination that you make during jury selection when you're asking the questions, whether or not you believe what they're saying and truly believe what the words that are coming out of their mouth. If the attorney doesn't believe that and have questions about that, they can look into it and also strike them from being a juror. So that's typically how that's done. You definitely get a good read on people when you have conversations with them during the selection process, and you use your gut and your instinct to see whether or not they're lying or not.
Now, folks, it's time for Murphy's Law. Now, this is a story in case that Stephanie has picked out. And what do you have for us this week, Stephanie Murphy?
So I've not been following until really now, but the Aaron Thomas case that's going on in a jury trial in Washington County right now. It's a former North Kingston high school basketball coach that was charged in July of 2022 with two different counts, second-degree child molestation and second-degree sex assault. And this was in terms of if he allegedly did fat tests on two different victims in this case. The jury selection started this week. It's still ongoing, but it is a really fascinating trial. And one of the articles I read about the trial is that Mr. Thomas might actually take the stand. And you don't really see that often in criminal cases, but I would be fascinated to listen to his testimony and to watch the trial. Not many times that the defendant takes the stand, but I do understand why in this case, it might be something that he would have to do in order to explain why those tests were being done and that he got parental consent and just describe the circumstances around what was going on.
Can you just also touch on why many times attorneys are hesitant to have their client take the stand? Although many times you could have a client that, we have a rescue or a fire truck. Although many times the client may say, oh no, I'll get up there. But why is it that attorneys are reluctant to put their client on the stand?
It's always ultimately up to the client whether or not the client wants to take the stand. In terms of my discussions with them, a lot of times it's not about the truthfulness of what they're saying, more so like minor inconsistencies that the jurors could read as them lying. For example, if 5 years ago you were arrested and you gave a statement saying that somebody is wearing a red shirt and driving a black car, then all of a sudden on the stand, many years later, you say they're wearing a green shirt and driving a brown car. Although that might not be the biggest part of the story, a juror will see that maybe inconsistencies and you're not being truthful. There's also a lot of times that sometimes when someone's talking about an event that's close to them, it's very emotional. It's very difficult for them to answer the questions, not only on direct, but then you have to be so fearful of cross-examination and the government impeaching your own client with prior statements, social media, and everything else. So you really, really have to be careful. And I think that's why it doesn't happen all the time.
I have one final question. Is there some strategy? He is a very good attorney that I've seen in action. Is there some strategy behind why they would in advance alert the media and others that he is potentially, or that they are going to put him on the stand?
I think maybe just for the public knowledge, because even though the defendant has a right not to testify, the jurors are instructed that they can't read into it, that they can't hold it against them, that there's no burden on the defendant. I mean, it always comes down to, people want to hear from them, whether it's the jurors or not. Maybe just in terms of just maintaining your innocence, that, putting it out there that, you might even hear from him. He's so adamant about his innocence that he's willing to talk to you guys about it. So other than that, I can't really think of a reason or why it would be out there other than that they're strongly thinking that he's going to take the stand and he wants to take the stand. And maybe people are talking about the fact that they've heard from him directly that he wants to take the stand.
I think it's a really interesting case because, I mean, it's odd. It's no doubt it's odd, these naked fat tests. However, what I think is going to be interesting is, but was it a crime, or is it the law too vague that he may have gone right up to the line, but maybe not actually cross the line?
I know they do have to, yeah, the state does have to prove sexual gratification. So I know there was a motion to dismiss that got denied, but that's a much lesser standard. So it will be really, really interesting about whether or not the juries find that a crime was committed, or maybe it's just inappropriate behavior.
And Stephanie, finally, if someone listening and watching right now, they think, hey, I could use some legal advice. It all begins with at least calling up, having a conversation. Maybe you do, or maybe it's nothing to be concerned about, but it starts with that conversation.
Absolutely. Just give us a call if you're worried about something, if you think something's not right, if you're, are being contacted by the police, anything like that. Just give us a call and we're happy to, walk you through it, give you our advice and try to help you.
Attorney Stephanie Merving. Stephanie, excellent job as always, and we'll talk to you again.
Thanks, John. Bye.
All right, folks, there it is. And, nope. Okay. All right, there we go. All right, now, that Aaron Thomas case, I am going to touch on that. Right now, 128, and this portion of our program, folks, is brought to you by, now don't forget, if you're thinking of getting a new roof, let me stay on schedule here. I will talk about the North Kingstown case. It's bizarre, but it's actually possible that he doesn't exactly cross the line. I'm going to talk about that, but I'm going to talk about the Romano case in just a moment. Folks, Roof Co. Rhode Island. Call them today. Free estimate, 401-868-7149. 401-868-7149. Roof Co. RI. Now remember, disaster, weather, who knows? It could be heavy wind or a leaky roof, or maybe you have a missing shingle or a curled shingle. It all begins and ends with a structure with the roof. If you have a poor roof on a structure, you're going to have a lot of problems. That's why Roof Co. Rhode Island. Call them 401-868-7149. 401-868-7149. Residential or commercial. It's Roof Co. Rhode Island. Look for them on Facebook. Now, right now at 1:29, it's Wednesday. We are in Dedham behind me. There is the courthouse. Jury selection continues with the Karen Reed case. I'm going to get to that in a moment. The Michele Romano case. those of you who've been following it, we put out a series of videos with this about this woman, Michele Romano, that was last October, November. Her wonderful young daughter, who was worried sick about her missing mom. And I've put up some photos about it. Obviously, we have followed the case. Her sister, Valerie, who is just, they're a dynamic family. And sometimes people can kind of fall in with the wrong type of crowd. And all of a sudden, I remember, there was the neighbor that said that she had basically vanished. So this is, and I'm holding up, so that is Michele Romano. And that was Halloween and then early November. We did a series of videos that she was missing. And then last week, there were human remains found in Foster. And then Monday, state police confirmed that they were the remains of Michele Romano. Now, last fall, when it was just, hey, my mom is missing, my sister is missing, and those of you that follow Road Patrol, we interviewed her daughter, Fallon, right in front of the home we were at last night in Warwick, which, by the way, it's my understanding, I think state police are still there today. They arrived on scene. It was early evening, late in the day, which leads me to believe they just had to wait for the warrants to get signed. But I want to caution people. Last night when we were live there, you did see the Rhode Island State Police Crime Lab. And they have, the canine, and they're processing everything. But there's several things we don't know. They're saying it's a suspicious death, but they didn't say a homicide. So I caution people to jump into that this was a homicide that occurred. They're not saying that. They're saying suspicious death. Now, I've heard from really rock solid sources that there did not appear to be distress with, with the remains that they found. So compared to the Charlotte Lester situation. So I don't know what happened, but we do know she was missing, and then Michele's remains were found. Now, I also want to point out, so the man who lived and owned the home, a man by the name of Chuck, I have no idea. He could be cooperating with police. He could not be cooperating with police. I have no idea. I don't know. I know. Here's what we know, because people always come to me and want the latest. We know that they are investigating that was where she was last living, and then suddenly they find, or a hiker found her like in a ditch in Foster, out in the woods. So state police are very methodical. I caution people that Carbuncle Pond, that investigation of the poor woman that ended up in the pond in Coventry, that took months. Plus they do the digital footprint where they're trying to track different vehicles that were going in and out of the area. So it takes a while, but I think sometimes people go too fast with some of the language. They go a little fast with some of the language. And all right, it's only one guy yelling outside. Last spring, there was a lot more than that. So I would just caution people to, this is Warwick Police, State Police are doing the investigation. And you saw last night, I mean, that wasn't like two guys with a flashlight. They had the crime lab there. They have to send that stuff out. They have the canine there. I don't know what they're going to find. We don't know what's going to come out of this. But it's my understanding of individuals I know connected to the investigation that they did not, and wording is important. They didn't come out right away and say, this is a homicide investigation. So I don't know. Some of the people that live down in that area are occasional drug users. So it could be that. And we talk about, but if that happens, you don't then just bury someone. It sounds insane that we have to explain that to people. But that type of thing is frowned upon. But I also want to caution people, we don't know what the end result is going to be. But this, in right now, I mean, who knows how long this could take for them to build an investigation. I am gonna get to the Karen Reed trial in just a moment. But with Michele Romano, I think last week, I mean, the weekend before, we had the missing woman, Linda. And by the way, I've heard from her family. She is still, I mean, that was an ordeal for them. It was an ordeal for her, obviously. There is talk of legislation about when people of special needs go missing. And what also, I think, complicates it a little bit is, now I reported it. We heard yesterday, missing person, North Providence Police. I shared the picture of the individual on all of my platforms. And then the mother said she called police and said the daughter came home at 3:30 in the morning. I don't know what, I mean, here's my problem. Listen, I don't know what happened. That sounds like someone who actually, whatever reason, wandered off. I think they saw video surveillance of the daughter from North Providence at the garage of Providence Place Mall. I don't know what happened with that situation, but I think we need to reclassify names. There's a difference of a Charlotte Lester. There's a difference of a Michele Romano. There's a difference of the woman that was found from Brockton and Carbuncle Pond. That's why I always caution when people, and some of these online websites and Facebook pages, they immediately put, missing, and many times they're runaways. I'm not saying that a 19-year-old should be off on their own, but what I'm suggesting is, but there's a world of difference between that and someone who is abducted. Charlotte Lester was killed and then buried in a shallow ditch. Michele Romano, we don't know what happened. Carbuncle Pond, I mean, Lila, they brought her in. They went to Brockton, picked her up, and then they, brutalized her and basically, almost beat her to death on the way to the pond, and then threw her into the pond. The doctor that's on trial across the street, he supposedly strangled the wife and then threw her in the pond. My point is, there's stories like yesterday, oh, she came home. I mean, that, I don't understand it in this day and age with cell phones and everything else, but I believe we need a better classification between, there's a difference between a runaway and a missing teen. And I also want to encourage people, you have to work with police. I know some people say, well, the police won't do anything. Well, there's different circumstances. I don't believe that. I've seen where police jump into action on things. So maybe there's more that that more than meets the eye of what we're being told here with some of these missing people. I also, the woman from North Providence, I'm not positive. I think someone put found safe. That's not what happened. She went home. She wasn't found anywhere. She wasn't found safe. That makes it seem like they're looking through the woods. Oh, we found her. She's safe. That's not what happened. I don't know why some of these online sites do that. Oh, found safe. And then people are like, oh, thank God. No, she went home. And again, I don't know what happened with that situation. Folks, this portion of the program, now, I do know that if disaster ever strikes, you want to call ServPro of Providence. And we're talking about water damage, fire, mold, storm recovery. ServPro of Providence. Call them today, 401-941-5500. When we're out on road patrol and you see the condition of some of these buildings that catch on fire or various things happen, you need the professionals. ServPro of Providence. That's who I would call. That's who I would call. If I owned a business and it caught on fire or some disaster happened at the place of business, that's who I would call. ServPro of Providence. They're fast, they're thorough, they're professional. Call them 401-941-5500, 941-5500, Serve Pro, excuse me, of Providence. Well, folks, good afternoon. It's 1:40 on this Wednesday, and we are in Dedham, and it is day 2, jury selection for the Karen Reed retrial. Now, see how I'm able to broadcast and be here? What they have done is there's people that like to come that support both sides, but mainly the Karen Reed people. And they like to gather outside the courthouse, and they like to chant, and they like to show her their support and everything else. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. And right now there's a group that's filing motions basically saying they should have the right to do it wherever they want. But I don't think they're going to be successful. You can tell right now, if they were outside like they were last spring, I wouldn't even be able to do this. Number one, there's other trials that are going on. You know, this morning I saw some people marching back and forth, and they have the "Don't Tread on Me" flag. What are you talking? What are you talking about? There's a very serious murder trial going on right now. There's other trials that are going on in the courthouse. I can see the juries going in and out. I understand they want to show their support for this woman that they feel that the system is rigged against her, and they want to show her their support, even though they don't know her, and they want to come down. But it's not just showing support. They want to be able to chant and yell and honk, and suddenly the outside of the courthouse is like the old bleachers at Fenway or the upper deck at the old Foxborough Stadium. That's not what it's supposed to be. It's not designed that way. So, and on top of that, as I talked about last spring, this is a difficult trial. It's going to go on for an extended period of time. I can tell when the judge says that this, trial is going to be 6 to 8 weeks. That's a long time. Some may be interested. Others, people, they get called. They're like, all right, what is it going to be? A day or two, or maybe a week? 6 to 8. That's a big commitment. Maybe, could go longer than that. So, but then the last thing you need is mobs outside and they're chanting and making all kinds of noise. I'll tell you, when you're inside, sometimes it sounds like there's a riot going on outside. So I know they may not like it, but I don't see how. Let me just say this, and I do want to touch on some other stuff. It doesn't impact the trial. It doesn't impact the trial. You're not saying you can't bring an attorney in. They're not saying that you can't bring a family member in. They're just saying you can't have all these people yelling outside like it's a Patriot home game, for crying out loud. I think that's pretty reasonable. Folks, this portion of the program, I received an email from Carol. Carol's asked me, what's the place that I recommend? She's looking to have her granddaughter go to summer camp for a little while. Carol, contact Kids Club on the Pike. Kids Club on the Pike. They're right off of 295 on the Cranston-Johnston line. Now, it is true. Kids Club on the Pike. Birthday party venue, before and after school care, preschool, and also summer camp. Right off of 295, Plainfield Pike. Kids Club on the Pike. Call them 401-443-5336. Now, I share their Facebook page. Maybe it's for a week. Maybe it's for a month. Maybe it's for the whole summer. You decide. But reserve your spot now. Kids Club on the Pike. They're going to love it. Right on off 295 on the Cranston-Johnston line, summer camp at Kids Club on the Pike. So, at 2 o'clock, I will return to the courthouse as we continue jury selection. Listen, it's very tedious. It's very necessary. It's a little bit different this time. What's different is, and jury selection is handled in different ways. But I've sat in jury selection in a federal, it's literally a federal trial. It was a criminal racketeering case. And the juror sits there and they ask questions, and you hear everything. You hear, how old they are, where they live, where they work, what they read, what they don't read, everything. This, it's more challenging because it's only the judge, the prosecutor, and the defense. And where I think the prosecutor, it's nonstop sirens around here. I don't know what it is. Where I think this is going to be a different dynamic and this is a Karen Reed update. There's a new king of the courtroom. There just is. People may not like it. Last spring, when I sat in court for the Karen Reed trial, the first trial, this is the retrial. Now, just so you understand, they have to select the jury. Good Lord! They have to select the jury, then they'll have opening arguments, then they call the first witness, and so forth. All right, here goes the rescue. So, folks, this is real. It's raw. But without question, just people are contacting me and asking me about the Karen Reed trial. Last spring, see, the key is, I totally get it. There's people that don't follow it. Listen, it's really interesting. It's a different type of case. In some ways, it's actually a very simple case, but I find people, when you follow trials, if you go into it with an open mind, you can find them. They're really very interesting. It's real. It's not made up. It's not like something on television that is made up. It's fiction. This is real. These are real people. It's unpredictable. Things happen. But last spring, to me, the first trial, the key person was defense attorney from LA, Alan Jackson. He defended Kevin Spacey. He's defended Harvey Weinstein. He was a prosecutor in LA. Last spring, Karen Reed trial. That guy, he not only owned inside the courtroom, he owned outside the courtroom. It was a walking press conference every day, back and forth to court. And he would give the media something. After court, he'd give a quote. They would ask him about a piece of evidence and whatever. In real time, he'd rip it. During breaks, he was constantly feeding things like that. He was nonstop propaganda for the defense, both, but not only outside, inside the courtroom. He's gifted in a way that just his manner and style is very compelling. He's got it. Not every attorney has it. But this time around, there's a gag order, and right now, the defense, they were caught on too many motions where they were fast and loose with the truth with the judge. I find the judge, and listen, I'm not going to buy into this nonsense. The judge is corrupt, all the cops are corrupt. Then why are you living in America if you feel that way? Listen, the judge is keeping them on a very short rope. But Hank Brennan, the special prosecutor, he was a prosecutor. He became a criminal defense attorney. He's the special prosecutor for this. Right now, he is the king of the courtroom. I watch it each day. And right now, unless that dynamic changes, he seems to be and has curried favor with the judge. Last spring, the judge, listen, you have to be impressed with Alan Jackson, high-profile attorneys from LA, blah, blah, blah. He's handled some big trials. So comes in, and he got a lot of latitude. I just don't see it this time. I don't see it this time. But it is an interesting dynamic where the courtroom is packed with all these people. And listen, they're doing their thing. They're doing their civic duty. They were called. They're coming for jury selection. And then they have to fill out a questionnaire, and they bring them up. And it's very methodical. It is tedious. It's my least, it's not even favorite part. It's part of a trial, but it's my least favorite part of the trial. But they seem to be making progress. And what you should know for if you're a O'Keefe family supporter, is Hank Brennan, to me, seems very dialed in. Very dialed in. And he, in some ways, it's like a game of poker. You know, that's the way, when you're viewing them up there, they don't want to maybe show that they're, maybe Jackson Yannetti don't want to show that they're really high on a juror. Maybe they really want that juror because then he could strike it out. It's a little bit of a game of poker, playing different. And Brennan the same way. I think he's trying to read them and then trying to read him. So, but right now, I get the sense that Brennan could be, I don't know if there's a winner or loser, but he's winning. Put it this way, it's not going the way it went last spring. I get the feeling it's definitely not going the way that it went last spring. Folks, with nothing against, I mean, I see Adam Lally every day. To me, he's a little bit better as a number 2, kind of like Garfunkel to Paul Simon, but they seem to be working really well. Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by Propane Plus. Remember, for all your heating and cooling, call Propane Plus today, 401-885-4209 in Massachusetts, 508-252-3359. Propane Plus. Now, they also have a very user-friendly website, and it's propaneplus.com. Call them today for all your propane needs. Call Propane Plus, 401-885-4209, or in Massachusetts, 508-252-3359 for Propane Plus. Now, I get all kinds of email. I received an email from a young man who, unfortunately, his grandfather has passed away. And he has been assigned to handle everything involved regarding his grandfather. And he heard me mention someone that he should call. So he sent me an email and said, could you repeat it? I won't, his first name, I believe his first name was Nicholas. You want to call Hill Skeffington. Hill Skeffington. Call them at 401-884-9222. You know why? Because they'll handle everything for you. It's not easy. It's a difficult time. It's a challenging time. But it's Hill Skeffington Funeral Home Cremation. You need someone dependable. You need someone experienced. And you need someone reliable. Hill Skeffington, they'll handle everything. That's who you want to call. That's what I emailed them. And I thought I would mention that as well. Well, folks, good afternoon. Again, it is a wild news situation. God bless me. We have the Thomas trial is starting. We're not going to ignore it. I mean, I think I'm going to cover part of that trial, not all of it. Listen, if that guy's going to take the stand in North Kingstown, for those that are familiar, if you're not familiar with it, this was the North Kingstown coach that claimed he was doing a body fat test only on young male athletes. And we talked about it with attorney Stephanie Murphy. And what Coach Thomas would do is, but he pretty much only did it to the freshmen and sophomores at North Kingstown High School, is he would make them strip down into their underwear and they'd go into a dark closet with him. And then he had these things that he held in his fingers to measure the fat on different parts of your body, mainly around the groin area. And then he would give that phrase, well, are you shy or not shy? And if you said, I'm shy, then you kept your underwear on. If you said, no, I'm not shy. Now, keep in mind, he's the basketball coach. And he's also, I think he was the gym coach, but he was also the AV coach. But anyhow, so, I mean, if you want to play in the basketball team, this guy decides whether or not you play in the basketball team. And they'll, the whole thing of, are you shy or not shy? If you are a basketball coach, watch the Final Four this weekend. You tell me, if you're a coach, if you want anyone that's going to be shy underneath the boards, to do that to a 13, 14-year-old boy, and are you shy or not shy? And then they'd say, no, I'm not shy. So then they'd take their underwear off, and they're standing there naked. And he's doing a body fat test on them. And what's interesting about it, that I know the story, is they can't find, to my knowledge, they can't find anyone else in the country with this test that would insist the only way to properly do the test is that you have to be completely naked. And then sometimes, according, there were accusations he did a hernia check on them, that some of the students made the accusation that he became aroused during it. It is a totally bizarre story, and it went on for years, and it threw off a lot of young guys. And it was just this weird thing. Well, are you shy or not shy? And then there you are alone in a dark closet with a guy, and he's examining your private area. It's so whacked. What's going to be interesting, and he's got a good attorney with John McDonald, but is it a crime? Supposedly it's only a crime if he got aroused a lot of it. So apparently he, according to Stephanie, he's ready to take the stand and say, no, I didn't get aroused at all. What is so, that I know this story, what's also so whacked about it is when they started, they had a winning basketball program. So then they don't want to get rid of him. So they bought a machine. They bought a machine for him. Listen, you're a successful basketball coach, and you insist on these body fat tests. So what we're going to do is we got the machine, and we're going to put it right in the middle of the locker room. So that's way there's no more of these naked body fat tests, shy or not shy, in the closet. So suddenly he comes up with the idea that he needs to do a puberty test on these young boys. So it's a puberty test, and guess what? Once again, they're in the closet, they're naked, and he's like, well, are you shy or not shy? Oh, no, it's not a body fat test, it's a puberty test. Folks, there's something obviously very odd about that whole equation. And so, but what this is going to come down to is, I know it sounds right, but did he commit a crime? Is it a crime? I don't know where the story's going to go. This guy obviously seems pretty confident that he can take the stand and be like, no, I don't, no one, and they can't find anyone to back it up. There's no one that's going to say, oh yeah, that's the proper way to do it. They can't find anyone to say that. But what to me really is so bizarre is that he jumps into the puberty test. So that tells me he had no interest in, like, some of the 17-year-olds, right? They get older, they kind of know the game a little bit. It sure comes off in a predatory fashion. Folks, this portion of our program, call Corey. It's brought to you by Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. Call them today, 401-283-9815. Now, they can resurface a pickleball court or a tennis court or a basketball court. They can make your pavement look like new. They epoxy garages and patios. They do decorative concrete flooring, Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. Call Corey, free estimate, 401-283-9815. And for the parking lot, they can make your pavement look like new. They'll fix potholes, cracks, make sure the lines are bright, direct traffic safely. Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. Call today, free quote, 401-283-9815. Call Corey at Quality. Well, folks, good afternoon. And again, it has been a busy, to say the least, 24 to 48 hours. It has certainly been busy. Now, the jury selection for the Karen Reed case will continue into the afternoon. And then we will be doing road patrol later on, especially it's sunny out and warming up, although it was freezing this morning. And that means there should be activity. So, again, I want to thank JR. I want to thank our guest, Stephanie Murphy. Thank you to everybody. Also, I will be posting. I had the privilege of being on Court TV this morning with the fabulous Julie Graham. We'll be posting that as well. If you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news. Everybody else, we will be back later on tonight, and we'll do some Road Patrol Live, and also bring you the latest on the Michele Romano case. I'm going to get back into court. Everybody on the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news.